Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, starring Harrison Ford once again as Indiana Jones for the 5th time, and directed by James Mangold and not Steven Spielberg, who made the other 4 Indiana Jones films, although 4 and this one, Dial of Destiny, shouldn't even exist, because in in Last Crusade, the 3rd one, they ride off into the sunset, being a complete ending to the whole entire story, beginning, middle, end. It's all done. It's all finished. The whole entire character arc, if you could call it a character arc, comparatively to what the kind of movies that are coming out nowadays, it's alright. But thing is, it shouldn't be just alright, because it's a Steven Spielberg movie. George Lucas, say what you want about the guy nowadays, and Harrison Ford coming back. And in general, my thoughts when it came to this movie specifically was, we haven't seen Harrison Ford star in film in a very long time. We do see movies that are IPs from the 80s all the time. It's just the way the world works, unfortunately. If people are going to watch it, then why aren't studios going to make it, unfortunately? That's what the issue is at the end of the day. And that's what I've completely seen with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I think that's a horrible title. I get why they call it that, though. Although it doesn't really have much to do with destiny. I don't really think Indiana Jones' destiny was to find this. I think his whole destiny thing was just him and Marion and then Mutt, and it's horrible what they do to Mutt in this one. They just, this is a spoiler review, I don't really care. They end up killing Mutt off because that's just the way they could separate Marion and Indiana off. Which makes no sense because they ended up getting married in the other one. But the whole thing with character arcs, you start somewhere, then you end somewhere. Indiana Jones and Marion are gonna get a divorce. Why couldn't it just be Indiana Jones and Marion go on an adventure with Sala? And maybe with Antonio Banderas, I forgot his name completely because of how one-noted and how forgettable it unfortunately was. I love Antonio Banderas, it just wasn't that great at all. They could have utilized him way more, but they just didn't want to, because they unfortunately, and look, I don't got anything against Phoebe Waller-Bridge, if that's even how you say that chick's name. She just didn't need to be in this movie at all. It could have just been Indiana Jones and Sala again. Unfortunately, this the way movies are going nowadays. It's just the way it was. She wasn't even needed to be. Why was she in this movie at all? In the beginning, I really did like the opening action sequence. It wasn't as bad as people were saying. In general, this movie wasn't as bad as people were saying it was. But the thing is, it's Indiana Jones. It shouldn't just be good or okay. It should be better than 99.9% of the stuff that's coming out. Like with Marvel, where there's like a stupid joke every 5 minutes, and people eat that up because it's just what's making money. But the thing is, that's not what Indiana Jones is. Yeah, it can be cheesy at times, the special effects, the sound design, and overall, it's a wholesome story of a guy escaping the unescapable. But I mean, it's different when there's all kinds of CG. And look, CG is good. I'm not against CG completely. Everyone knows, like, CG used correctly is always a good thing. But in this scenario, no. This had the same exact problem with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I shouldn't be saying that. Just Kingdom, or Crystal Skull, whichever one people call it. The opening action sequence is a completely, that's what I wanted to watch the whole entire movie. In certain shots he looks amazing, in certain shots you can tell. In general, when it comes to whole de-aging, used right, like it was used right in Terminator Dark Fate. If anyone, I don't know when to watch that, so there's no point of me even saying that, because everyone just wants to watch a Marvel movie. And I'm not saying Terminator Dark Fate is like The Godfather or anything. Just you know what? Nah, I'm not even gonna go there. We see a bunch, like Indiana Jones, like get punched in the face so many times over and over again throughout this whole entire film by like clear like military army men, right? But then out of nowhere, Helena, like for some reason, knock him out so easily, so cold. Well, she just can't. I'm sorry. Like throughout this whole entire movie, if maybe they used her like, oh, she's flexible and all, because I'm not a sexist or anything. It doesn't make sense. The whole movie is just conveniences over after conveniences and the whole thing. Like this happens to Harrison Ford, like so far in Blade Runner, it happened to him. He's a father that isn't with his kids. In Star Wars, his kid kills him. And this one, Mutt dies. Like, this is like, why is Lucasfilm in general like doing this to him? I know I keep going back to Kingdom, but he has a happy ending. Sala asked Indy to join him on his journey, and that would have been nice. That would have been much better. But guess what? We can't have Sala come back. I would have preferred Kate Capshaw to come back. Say what you want about her in Kingdom. She's much better than Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and I don't hate Phoebe Waller-Bridge with the passion like everybody else on the internet. I just don't like her in this film. I haven't seen anything else from her because she looks kind of annoying. I don't like her in her demeanor. I don't hate her or anything. I just don't care. But when it comes to her whole entire character, her whole arc was like, oh, she steals, but then at the end she becomes a good person because she saves Indiana. Say what you want about characters not being in the original three movies, the original trilogy, and then appearing in Kingdom. John Hurt's character, say what you want, but it was way more convincing than Phoebe Waller-Bridge's. Toby Jones does a good job with the material he's given. He's not a bad actor or anything. It doesn't work for the film at all. In general, a lot of things for the film, if they don't work, they just shouldn't have done it. And that's what I'm thinking about this. The whole thing with Phoebe Waller-Bridge being engaged to some prince or something, and then him chasing her. There's two sides going again, like that. No, that doesn't. But that was an excuse for an action set piece that went on way too long, and it was so mid. It wasn't even worth watching. Like, I've seen much better from like 20 years ago, and I understand Harrison Ford is like 80 in this one, and Sean Connery was like in his 50s apparently in Last Crusade. This was my most anticipated movie this whole entire year because John Williams scored this movie. That score did obviously incredible. Like, it was great the whole entire time. That definitely did, save the film, if you want to call it like saving. Honestly, I will probably watch this again, like whenever. There was a difference that I saw when I was watching this film and when I was watching Sound of Freedom. When I was watching this movie, opening day, premiere, is when I saw it. So many open seats. Nobody went to go watch this movie in general. And then Sound of Freedom, it was a packed theater, and it was like second or third week of all watching it. The problem with Hollywood movies nowadays is you can have the absolute worst script, worst actors, horrible directors, but people will watch it. Culturally, this movie unfortunately doesn't make sense. If they were gonna make one, they should have made one after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And things with Kingdom, that came out in 2008. A whole, they passed the 90s, they went into the late 2000s, and it still did well. I don't see why they didn't make it right after that, but hey, they did wait. It did get panned critically. Hollywood now is much different than it was back then. Back then we had The Dark Knight, we had films that, if you paid attention to it, if you actually cared about it, then yeah, it would have been, Marvel wasn't what it is now, and I'm not, saying all Marvel movies are bad. Audiences nowadays, they don't want to watch a movie about an 80-year-old man going through the jungle and fighting fighting people that are younger than him and then growing and learning from it. It's like, oh, new life experience. They don't care about that. They just want to see Spider-Man. Yes, Lucasfilm has much more cultural impact with Star Wars, and back in the 80s, you could make original ideas and get away with it. But nowadays, you can't. You need some comic book adaptation. I'm not saying all comic book movies are horrible, but if you see the state of movies comparatively to from now to the 80s, 90s, and even the late 2000s with we had films like The Dark Knight, and we did have a good Marvel, like Iron Man. That was a solid. It was solid. It was good. It was all right. I don't hate it. It's all right. It's not. And I'm not trying to sound like one of those guys that's oh, Marvel's they've made some okay movies, but the thing is the state of it's not just I'm not just getting on Marvel. Average audience member in the United States and the international market isn't gonna generally want to watch an 80-year-old man trying to fight people that are younger than him and then have some kind of a character arc that comes from that, because people just they don't want to see that. They want to see Spider-Man crawling on CGI walls, and yes, you could come up with a better arc and a better story, and then that could be much more elaborate and much more intense story-wise, plot-wise, emotional-wise. But that's not what the general audience member. They just want to turn their brains off and never turn their brains back on again and watch a movie, not a film. I'm not trying to sound like that guy, but I am sounding like that guy. And that's just the way I shouldn't even call it that. That's the way the movies are nowadays. If you haven't seen the rest of them, why would you want to see this one, honestly? Thing is, when it comes to the latest Marvel movies, oh, Spider-Man's in this, I think I'll go see it. I don't know any of the Spider-Man stories, but I'll see it. But the thing is, when it comes to Indiana Jones, he's an 80-year-old man, just that's literally it, actually. In the other ones, he would escape in the Inescapable. In this one, he's just a grumpy old man. And if you could pull that off, which I know Harrison Ford could have, and I know James Mangold could have, but they didn't, because the writing, the script, the studio. It's just the way. I don't think James Mangold by any means is a sellout by making this. I really don't. I do see certain scenes where he did try, and you could tell there were Spielberg-esque moments in this. I could tell, oh, that he got that from Spielberg. I can just tell by watching this. But the thing is, people nowadays, they don't care about talent. They just want to see, like I said, just some actor in front of a green screen that's good looking. It's not about the emotion. It's not about the plot. It's not about what the story is trying to tell you. It's just not what general audiences want to. And yeah, you could say Joker is an excuse. You know, like a lot of people like Joker, and I understand why people like Joker because it makes them feel like they're different. Oh, look, I understand Joker. Back then, all movies back then were cinema because all the old Indiana Jones films were innovative. This one, it's not innovative whatsoever. They even kill off Mutt, and I understand why. You could have just said he went off to war, but you didn't have to say he died in war. But they just straight up killed him, and it's like, yeah, I'd rather have, say what you want about him. I would have rather had Shia LaBeouf in this than Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Of course, who wouldn't? She did. I don't want to call her a bad actress or anything. It just the way the story was, the way it was done in service of the characters didn't make any sense whatsoever plot-wise. And yes, every single ending of an Indiana Jones movie is like somewhat polarizing or divisive or somewhat. You know, we had the exploding heads and Raiders, and then he was eaten by crocodiles or alligators, and then Temple of Doom, and in Last Crusade, the villain grows super old. Kingdom, the chick's head explodes, and in this one, the guy just dies in a plane crash off screen, kinda, and then there's like all the CGI smoke goes away, and then you see what happened, and you know, it's not too graphic because, you know, this is a Disney movie. This isn't something, you know, like back in the day where they could do whatever they want and get away with it, and audience members weren't, you know, I can't say the word obviously because this is going on YouTube, but you know what I'm saying. In every single film too, there's like the creature scene, you know, with the rats in Last Crusade, the bugs in Temple of Doom. The first one, Raiders, it was the snakes. In the fourth one, Kingdom, it was the ants. And there was and this one, what is there exactly? I mean, there's kind of a scene where just a bunch of CGI bugs, and you know, they're just doing this, and really there's nothing there, but some sweatshop worker in Japan is getting paid 2 cents an hour to like do it. But you know, whatever. Hey, as long as they get this movie out faster, that's all that matters. Because you know, audience members, they don't care about quality, or they just want it. That's just how it is. Well, that's just my 2 cents on that. I'd say, I guess.